And actually, before you get started, I'll quickly introduce myself. My name is Anurag, Mairal, those of you who just came in. I'm the president for Sewa Bay Area chapter. I'm a professor at Stanford School of Medicine. Have been in industry for a really long time. I got involved with Sewa 6 years back, and it's just been a wonderful journey, and I'm blown away by what the organization does. So I'm hoping you all get to see that today. Shravan ji.
Thanks, Anurag. First of all, I don't know why I'm sitting here, because I literally got the call in the parking lot, like, hey, we need you on the stage here. No, I'm like really honored to be here. First, I've known and worked with Anurag for a long time, and I know the kind of effort that he has put into Sewa as an organization for the longest period of time. I have immense respect for what the organization has been doing and is continuing to do. So first of all, thanks for giving me this opportunity here. My name is Shravan. I'm the CEO for a company called Colibri Group, and I've lived in the Bay Area for 25 years. To your first question, I think it was around like what sort of the leadership journey was. I would say the leadership journey was completely non-linear, and lots of curves and lots of turns for me. But it kind of started with back in Microsoft when I first started as a techie, just like most people would be in the 90s. But really my journey took on a different direction where I got tired of coding, and I said why am I building this? It is actually to create value for somebody, and that is the customer. And so my thinking was just hey, I want to understand the customers better. And so I started moving in that direction, went and got an MBA. I wanted to build my own company. And but lo and behold, I spent 11 years at Microsoft. But it was a great platform because it allowed me to go from being a techie to a product to a customer-centered operator over time. And then from there on, I think of I moved on to bigger roles over time. But I just think of it as two halves. First half was sort of that foundational and formational years, where I had taken a deliberate journey to go across different types of job roles to understand the entire organization model. And that just gave me a different perspective on how do you think about customers, how do you create value for the customers, and then how do you build the right business models, and then how do you build a business around that, right? And so if I think about the last 15 years of my journey, kind of building on that, I've become a CEO at one point, and then I went on to become a GM, and then I went on to become Coursera. Just before Colibri, I was the CPO, GM, COO, and then now I'm the CEO. So people look at me and I'm just why did you have so many twists and turns? And for me, it's just fundamentally the connecting tissue is I still wanted to follow my passion. I wanted to do something that my work can actually create value in the society. And so my experience with dictionary.com or Coursera or DICE or with Colibri, we're all in the space, it's this intersection of skills and education and how technology is rapidly changing the landscape of what skills are in demand. Think about this, the shelf life of the skills is expiring faster than probably the Tylenol tablets in your closet right now, right? So that's kind of why I've been attracted to that, and I continue in that journey. So I'll pause.
No, so you and I have had many conversations in the past, so the last several years about what does the future of work look like, and are we training next generation? And that challenge is as much for the well-served part of the society as it's for underserved. In fact, for underserved, it's much more significant. So a lot of work we do, which you'll hear later in the banquet about, the Aspire program, which works with the elementary school kids, actually that will come in sharper focus. So we won't go deeper into it today, right now, but hopefully you'll hear a little bit about it later today. And this is something that's a significant issue with the post-AI, post-LLM era. I think there are significant challenges that the community, underserved community faces around just economic well-being and just ability to participate in that economic progress. So I'm gonna switch gears a little bit to our second guest, Shailesh, who agreed to join last minute because Jay's flight got canceled and Yervin got delayed, so he's going to come later today. So, part of the reason that you didn't really know that what we're going to be talking about and, why are you here, I think any of the folks here in the audience can be here because you all are leaders in the audience, in the industry. You all have roles to play. I know many of you, and I can imagine the stories that you could share. But you are exemplars of that, so that's why you are up here. Shailesh ji.
My name is Shailesh Rao. Thank you for inviting me. Hopefully I can fill in well. So, I've been involved in the technology industry for more than 2 decades now. I'm perhaps a little bit different in the sense, in the Indian community, I came from the business side of things, not the software development engineering side of things. Yeah, just keep it closer. Arrived in the Valley, grew up in the U.S., parents are from India, spent a lot of time in India visiting relatives, but grew up here. Started at a startup in the late 90s, fintech startup, and then ultimately was an early executive at Google. I launched Google Maps and Google Earth 2005. That sort of put me on the radar, and then the reward for that was that I was asked to go to India to start and run India for Google as its first MD there, and then ran Asia for them. Started to develop something of an expertise of bringing new technologies to markets around the world, and got recruited to join the Twitter management team to help take the company public and run all markets outside the U.S. And after spending a lot of time in operating roles, I decided it might be interesting for my growth and breadth of understanding to understand the investing world. So became a partner at a firm called TPG, and I ran their growth fund and their social impact fund for India and Southeast Asia, continued to be involved in the expansion of technology in Asia. And the social impact piece of it, I was curious about the intersection of capital provision, the development of for-profit businesses, and how that can connect with social impact. I'd seen it at Google, and I wanted to see if we could broad base that to a wide range of businesses and a wide range of founders and have impact in markets where the innovation flywheel wasn't as vibrant as it was here. Sort of the social aspect of that. I now run my own fund. It's an AI seed fund. And the thesis of the fund is to focus on supporting founders from markets around the world, starting with India, to help them enter, scale, and win in the U.S. It's a combination of capital, mentorship, access that we try to bring together to help these founders who have tremendous potential, but don't always have the privileges or the access that maybe some of us enjoy. To come back to your question about leadership, I think, I flowed through mostly conventional process, but to share observations about it, you start as a individual contributor, you have broader expanded individual responsibilities. At some point, they entrust you with managing teams, and over time, those teams grow. And then I think an interesting twist, especially when I went to India to run Google for India, that was 2007, it's really the beginnings of the internet distribution through the country. So the knowledge of the internet was quite low. And I thought my job would be to do the technical things that the company role required, which was sell ads, push usage of your consumer products, and build teams. The job ended up being much more a chief evangelist role, which forced me to redefine my notion of leadership and the idea of community, which was used to be within the walls of the enterprise, but started to become engaging the central government in Delhi, started to involve going on television, and particularly programs that were about educating the young about how to use the internet, and spending time with law enforcement to understand the difference between right and wrong when it comes to using this relatively new medium. So the notion of leadership and who you touch and the accountability you feel, the responsibility you feel, even though you're in a corporate role, when you have products that touch people and touch their core day-to-day lives, you feel a greater sense of responsibility. And learning how to wear that well without being overwhelmed by it, and then at some point starting to lean into it and try to do the best you can in that role and not just accept it but thrive in it. It's a journey. And then I think when you get later in your career, I'm an investor now, you transition leadership from excellence is somebody asks me a question, I always have the right answer, right? And then you ultimately make the transition to, can I ask the right question to the right person and help them get to the right answer? And that transition mentally, at its core, is really about understanding the switch into a leadership role. And you're able to let go and understand guiding, channeling, allocating resources, getting to the right people. Early days of investing, I felt the pressure of every founder thinking they're coming to me because I have all the answers to everything. Pretty quickly you realize your main value is routing them to the right person, the right domain expertise, the right geography, right, the right functional expertise. And you accept that, and you actually start to understand that you are creating value in your own way. And that's the journey of moving from a technocrat to kind of a leader. So it's a rich question. I'll stop there.
No, it is. And, I took a lot of mental notes. At Sewa, we had, during COVID-19, we actually funded these micro entrepreneurs who are from the LGBT community during COVID, especially during second wave. And they were really struggling and they were dying in large numbers, that community in particular. And we realized the role that entrepreneurship can play, social entrepreneurship can play in the lives of these communities, empowering them. But Impact Capital has gone through so much of evolutions in that, and there are lots of lessons that we could learn. The other thing that you talked about is chief evangelist, chief connector, chief enabler. In many ways, Sewa actually approaches its work in the same way. We don't do it alone. In fact, our tagline, last at the bottom, it says, "Together we serve better." It's not a tagline for us. This is exactly how we do things. Every single project, every single initiative, you will see in the audience during the banquet, our partners, our beneficiaries, we don't do this alone. And we can't do it alone. It does take a village. But as you're doing it, you do need an organization like Sewa that actually has a sense of what needs to be done, what the overarching mechanism of action is, what levers to pull, what resources are needed, and how do you orchestrate to really create that impact. So we do have volunteers that go to the last mile, but we have partners in the last mile. So I think that engagement with the community for a larger goal, whether it's a professional goal, it's a business goal, or an impact goal, is really, really critical. So lots of lessons there, actually. I'm going to switch to Sewa, and then we'll go to the audience. You heard about range of things that we do. You're not an expert on Sewa at all, but you have been around, and you know the kinds of things that work. One of the things that we have really focused on, or especially over the last 5-6 years, is increasingly, one of the challenges that we have seen with nonprofit sector is that, especially with volunteer and organizations, that it's a lot more about doing with your hands, which is important, but it's not really thinking about the scale. So we go into the community, we do something, it becomes a pilot, we impact 5 lives, 10 lives, 25 lives, but there are tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people that need to be impacted. How do we scale, go from a beautiful thing that we do in a community, and how do we scale? How do we take that to, how do we do a market growth, if you will, right? So that's kind of a key question for us. And I'll give you an example. During COVID-19 first wave, when the US was struggling quite a bit, we actually worked, both first year and second year, 2020 and 2021, we worked with USDA to distribute 4.5 million pounds of food right here in the Bay Area, just in the Bay Area alone. So you can imagine nationwide how much. And we were able to serve hundreds of thousands of families. We had 37 partners, Afghan refugees and Hmong refugees and Hispanic American communities and so on, migrant workers. And we learned quite a bit from that. How do you run an operation like that with supply chain, with distribution, with quality control, with bringing appropriate organizational strength? So the question for both of you, how do you see the leadership sitting here in the room, you both as exemplars of that leadership sitting here in the room, how can the corporations they represent or the organizations they represent and know how they represent, how do they engage with an organization like Sewa, and we are not alone, and how do we engage with them? What's that mechanism, what's the secret sauce, what's the formula that we should adopt in making this as impactful as possible? We don't want to waste your time. We want to make sure that your time is very effective. We also want to make sure our impact is maximal. So I'll start with you and then Shravanji.
I think it starts with mission alignment.
Yeah.
Not everybody is going to be a great partner at the institutional level or at the individual level. And you don't want that because you also don't want everybody will say yes in the moment.
Yeah.
Because who's not supportive of the mission? Who's not supportive of accomplishing more of what you've already accomplished? But I found being associated with nonprofits and leading nonprofits in my own life that being caught up in the well-wishers and the good words and good feelings doesn't always translate to real work. Because the key is when you need the help, is that person or institution going to make the necessary sacrifices to prioritize what you need and truly support you? And that is a more challenging standard. So I think, as particularly in the kind of work you're talking about here, in my own experience, it's really working hard to have a deep conversation about mission alignment. What matters to your organization? What do you individually care about? And as you have that conversation across the community, you will find natural champions. Fewer in number, but higher in quality. And that's what makes a difference, because if they do the impact and they're engaged, they're truly committed, they will spread the word. And through referrals, you'll find your tribe. I think that's the key, is to find the tribe that believes in the cause and will make the effort and put in the time. Because everyone has for-profit commitments. Everyone has family commitments. And so, at least that's my 2 cents on that.
It's remarkable that a lot of that you talked about in terms of value alignment, mission alignment, it's something two organizations in the business community working together should go through as well. So many of those lessons actually translate to nonprofit sector too, that those principles don't go away. And as I invite you to share your thoughts on this, Shravanji, I'm going to walk to the audience and we're going to start to engage with them. I'm sure they'll have questions for you and they may have thoughts. So please.
I couldn't agree more with you, Shailesh. Mission alignment is super critical. So I'll give you a couple examples similar to what Anurag was saying during COVID. But so my Coursera time, our mission is to transform lives through learning. And Coursera was founded by 2 Stanford professors who knew what education meant to the world. And if you look at the UN principles, education is one of the top 14 principles for changing, transforming lives. And so when COVID hit, the immediate action that we could do, because almost about 3 billion students were stuck at home without access to learning. And so what we said is, we're going to make Coursera free for all universities in the world. But we didn't have a product to enable that. But we had a mission to transform lives through learning. So we said we took a 3-week sprint. I pulled together about 30 people, and we launched Coursera for Campus is what it was called, and we made it free. And within 6 months, we had probably over, I would say about 30 million or something using Coursera for Campus, and millions of hours of learning consumed. And they all gained those certificates. And these were, now, if you put on the other side, these were students in all over the world, from schools, in high schools to college campuses, not just in US, they were in Asia, they were in Africa, they were in South America, etc. So to me, I think that's one example. The other example is at Coursera, we also worked with a lot of NGOs. The NGOs were a channel to actually work with the communities locally, and they understand the challenges that those communities face. And so we worked with Goodwill as an example. Goodwill is understands the local economic challenges, but also they are trying to prepare some of these individuals to connect with the local jobs as well. Teach for America is another example. So these are the kinds of institutions that we did. But one of the beautiful things we actually could do was partner with Google Foundation. Grow with Google is a foundation, not a foundation, but Grow with Google is got millions of dollars trying to help communities get educated. And so we're like, all right, how do we scale this much bigger? And so we partnered with Grow with Google, and so they brought in money. They brought in a lot of support to those NGOs, and then we could bring a lot of the content and the credentials, certifications that were job-aligned certifications. And so today, when I think about it as a CEO of Colibri Group, we are in this business of licensed, a professional education space for licensed regulated professions. And so when you think about licensed regulated professions, think of, call a nurse or a pharmacist or a accountant or a financial services professional or a real estate agent. So the pride I have in all of this is these are the people that I interface and engage with on a daily basis, right? And so you go to any of these institutions. And so the opportunity for us to kind of really impact is real, but it's also real through my work on a daily basis. And so this sort of the combination is kind of what I look for in general. So a couple different examples.
Great segue to the conversation we need to have here. So we'll in the interest of time, we'll do 3 to 5 comments/questions, and then I would love for you all to interact. And then this conversation that we're just starting, would love to continue that during the dinner. There's a roundtable. The format today, and you'll hear about that when the banquet starts, is that you all are being placed at the same table for a reason. There are topics that you'll see on your table, and it'll be great for you to weave the conversation that we just had into that. It's a continued conversation, and we will come during the dinner time to all of your tables to actually hear from you what has come out of that. We really value your ideas, and we actually implement those ideas. There are a number of examples that we can give about the ideas that have come from folks like you that we have been able to implement and benefit these communities. So just raise your hands. I'm going to come to you, walk to you with my microphone and get your thoughts. Who wants to go first? Here, I'm a professor, so I'll call upon you. I have no zero. Say that.
Question. So maybe you can talk a little bit about with the changing political environment and all the changes that happened. You talked about USDA and so on. How has that affected Sewa, and what's your going forward plan?
No, that's a really good question, and it did impact some of the work that we were doing with the government. Fortunately, we are not heavily dependent on the government. We do believe that working with the government, that's where deep pockets are, and we can make significant impact. A lot of work that government does, if it does with partners like ours, like the USD example that you talked about, the impact is significantly higher than when they try to do it themselves. So at some point, the political environment will change, and we'll go back to it. But because a lot of our work is through volunteer activities, it has not impacted us too significantly. And our donors have stepped up, actually, both corporations and high net worth individuals and individual donors, actually, small volume donors too, small ticket size donors. And we really are very, very grateful. And our community just keeps on growing because of the impact that we show in local communities. And you'll hear from them this evening. Great question. I mean, if any of you have any ideas to build upon it, we have our board of advisors here. You could weigh in with some thoughts on this. We got Professor Colin Boyle from Stanford. We got Intuitive Surgical President Dr. Catherine Moore. We got Sanjay Singh Dangji. We got Rohit Jainji. So can you just raise your hands, all the board of advisors of Sewa? And there you go, JPG. How can I forget him? He's like our Sewa Community Center comes from. So each of them have already thought about, going back to your question at 3G, each of them have contributed specific ideas that have allowed us to build our foundation and grow. If you drive by Milpitas Boulevard, you will see on the right side a big building just before you hit Montague. It's Sewa Community Center. This is the first building of its kind that we have in the country, and it has allowed us to it's called Community Center for a reason. It's not an office. It's a community center because other nonprofits come and work with us. We make that home for them, and it has allowed us to strengthen our partnership with them. We enable them. Many nonprofits have succeeded because of our work with them. They are there's a nonprofit called Agape, which was a one-person organization 5 years back. That organization has now 27 people, and they serve tens of communities. And we benefit from that because burritos that we make for them, there's a Burritos for Sewa program you'll hear about. It's a food security program, healthy burritos. They are distributed through their organization. So it's a win-win. Any other questions?
Since nobody is taking the charge, I'm taking the charge. No, I just want to set the context. Bringing the CXOs, is very objective because Sewa has done a great job creating a foundational volunteers. And it's a phenomenal job done in COVID time, not just for locally, and they kind of spread in globally and deliver the work. And not only just for community impact, they have taken the charge helping the schools here. You all Exodus knows about how California schools are rated compared to the other state of the schools. That's a fundamental problem in the school's perspective. So many people can afford, they can send private schools, but many of the folks, 40 million people in California, cannot afford to send it to the private schools. So there is a clear objective on the school side to kind of Sewa has taken some Aspire program after school. I think I want you guys to kind of understand how, as a thought leaders, you've done in your life something good. And that's the one thing that I want to share with all Exodus, see how you can help. Like I just learned from Shravan today, so I think Google has partnered with the Coursera and COVID time to enable the scaling. Just this is some of the things. And number two, personally, I was very, want to do something, the global health side, mobile clinic. Many of the people not having insurance in California, and especially they lose their jobs after 50. And I know Exodus are here, they don't hire. Let's say if I'm a 50, Amit is not going to hire me. Because I'm not talking about the regulator, I'm just taking Amit is the CEO of DCSAT. Give a big applause, he's taking a time and coming here. So, thank you. So you're extraordinary then. So that's why CEOs won't hire the extraordinaries. So, anyways, just want to bring some kind of easiness. That's why I brought the point. But the second point is the leadership program, and as well as the global health program is very important. I think probably you need to think about if any of your connections and like Stanford or any other thing, how we can collaborate with Sewa, create a cohort program for the mobile clinic, thereby really, and Cloud California agreed to kind of cover the insurance part of it for the poor people who are low income or not earning any. So they already have a partner in one set of the insurance perspective. Now we need to get the hospitals and the physicians, certified physicians, bring into one umbrella. See, we can create a framework as a do a cohort. So these are the reasons CX, this first time Sewa is doing CXO. So we want to bring the thought leaders. They were very successful and they know how to give back. So can we create some framework in this? Help us, Sewa, kind of lead the program in two programs. One is Aspire, another one is the global health. It's called as a mobile clinic. I know, and I'm going to put the same two questions, both Shailesh and Shravan. There's a purpose that we invited you to, because inspire and make sure some of the things that what Sewa is doing, can you kind of message it out and help the other people to participate in this program? Thank you. Sorry for taking 2 minutes more.
No, that's very important. Thank you, JPG. Really appreciate it. We're gonna close it out unless somebody has a question or comment. I'll just end with this emerging thought at Sewa. So one thing that you heard, I don't know if we have the tree diagram where we have 5 of our key focus areas. It's outside. So there are 5. So disaster relief, family services, food security, health equity, and educational equity. These are the 5 key areas Bay Area is focused on because the hyper-local needs of the Bay Area community. And we were working with different communities across the Bay Area for the last 20 years. And we realized that and this came out of the success of a program that we have called Aspire, working with elementary school children in the underserved school districts, where more than 50% of the children receive SNAP benefits. You must be hearing about SNAP benefits. More than 50% of families in those school districts receive SNAP benefits, and they're going hungry right now. So as we've been working with these communities, we realized that these communities actually have not only, so we're working with on educational inequity, and then the data shows that children who come to our after school program are coming to regular school just because of after school program, and the outcomes from that program has gone up quite a bit, and you'll hear some data during the banquet. But what we also realize is that the same kids have siblings and family members who are food insecure. They themselves are food insecure. They have health inequity. So we started wondering, should we not bring all of our wherewithal to serve those communities? It's a well-identified community. They have trust. They work with us. They've seen the benefit. You'll hear some testimony from some of the folks today. Should we not bring it together? And this is indeed what UN's Sustainable Development Goal talks about, that you bring these different pieces together to improve the well-being of these communities. So that's an emerging thought. It's a new way of approaching the work. We rather than working in lots of different communities with lots of different things, can we start to pilot an integrated work that creates a substantial impact on not just the child, but child's family, not just an adult, but the children in the family. So kind of a more integrated approach to it. I'm just sharing this with you to kind of put a germ of an idea in your head and start thinking about how could we scale that. It's going to be a more complex way to do it, but it might create more impact. So with that, I just want to thank our two amazing panelists here who agreed to speak. And JPG is the one who actually was able to convince them to come and speak up here. I know that a lot of you are new to Sewa or have heard of it, but you're not engaged as deeply. We would like you to engage more deeply to the extent that it's not only the cause, but the approach that we are taking. So you're right. Who doesn't want to do this, right? But we also want to make sure that this fits with what is it that you want to do personally and through the organization or ecosystem that you're part of. So thank you again. The guests, that rest of the guests who are going to be joining the banquet are outside already. Would love for them to mingle with you. Please mingle with each other. This is as much of a networking and mingling exercise as it is this intellectual and impact-focused exercise we just did here. Really appreciate you being here. It's a substantial. Your time is the most valuable asset, and your talent is the most valuable asset to us. Money is important. Hopefully, you'll write checks today, but that's not the most important thing, honestly. I mean, I'm not being facetious about this. Money is important, and we'll find a way to get the money. But what we need from you is your engagement, sustained engagement, because this is not a one and done thing. Thank you.